position you found yourselves some time back, where you had a lot of individuals with no licenses.
What's a reasonable time frame? 6 months, a year, 3 months?
I'd say a year.
It's gonna have to be a year.
I believe a year.
And then I guess my only question would be, and then if you don't obtain it, then what?
Well, then you get assigned to another job. You can stay with the city, but you can't stay with the water department.
Right.
San Antonio does that, as a matter of fact.
Right, but you may not have
But
available
you may not
position.
have available
Yeah.
positions for that.
It's true too.
I mean, I'm just throwing these scenarios out because I've
Oh,
listed
no,
them
I'm
already.
listening to what
So
you're
I'm
saying.
just,
Which
you
is
know.
why I said, because I knew about the contractual, because that was one of the things I thought too, and they were like, no, you can't do that, or after that.
But if you don't qualify, that,
You don't qualify for that job.
And it says ability.
You're actually in that real estate
you don't
anyway.
have to keep them, because it was a regular workstation.
That at will is very, is not necessarily at will,
Yeah.
there's still protections, and it's not just as easy as
Well, I
saying.
know one thing for sure, it doesn't qualify for an EEO complaint, that's for sure.
So, I mean, I guess I would just, from a caution standpoint, would not want to say that. I would want to say, you know, maybe you start work, you have the ability to obtain it and begin working on that within X time period, and then leave that alone, because we start getting too specific, then I think that can create some challenges.
Well, maybe all we leave that up to the director.
So would we still, would we want at least 90 days just to see if that person, before we send them to school?
Right. We wait until they finish their probationary
Okay.
period, which is 90 days before they can even enroll in a class.
That works.
And then, you know, so then they have additional, 9 months after that
Okay, that would
to
work.
take courses and potentially test.
But that would be their expectations, that would give it them. And if they don't meet the expectations, of course, our evaluation is going to show that they didn't meet those expectations.
There you go.
If they can't get it, they're probably gonna leave anyway.
Yeah. And you're gonna do their review anyway, so
Yes,
you're gonna know where we're at.
yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
I second the motion.
Okay, so that was you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, Patty, did you get all of those things?
Sure she did. Well, the recording has,
Yes.
yeah, the recording has, it's messed up and that.
Right, but do we need to state it?
Yes. So I have the part about deleting licensing, the verbiage for licensing for water and wastewater.
Correct.
And we're not going to, we're going to keep it more generalized than include too many stipulations, because
Correct.
that would be an issue. But I want to have proper wording for that.
Mike can probably help you out with that. You know probably what needs to be said, I need to be said.
We can go,
Too many
wait
holes in the
until we
word.
can sit down and figure something out and bring it back up.
Well, the thing is this, I know because they're gonna have to put it together and bring back to us to read. So
Well,
we're gonna have to-
we understand, I think, I'll work on
You
language.
understand
We
what you're
understand the
doing.
direction of what
Okay.
you're asking for.
So we can leave it at that.
We're not gonna require licenses.
Correct.
That's basically the
Correct.
bottom line.
Right.
All right, so that was motioned by you and seconded by Councilmember Martin? Okay. All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Grant, seconded by Councilmember
It's to help each other.
Martin to not stipulate that a license for water, wastewater, water, sea, wastewater collection is required with other stipulations mentioned tonight. All right, is there any further discussion? Will our city secretary please call roll?
Councilmember Grant?
Yes.
Councilmember Apodaca? Yes. Councilmember Salazar?
Yes.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Yes.
Mayor Pierce?
Yes. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, Patty.
Mayor Pro Tem Aldrich?
Yes.
It really doesn't look that unneat to me, Chief. He doesn't look that unneat to me.
You don't know like I do, sir.
Ah,
All right, we will now move to, sorry, will that be able to be revised tomorrow so that that can be updated?
Yes.
All right, we will move to item 8H, discussion of possible action on United Private Networks proposal for internet and phone services. We'll turn this over to Monique.
I emailed you all some responses from Mr. Jim Gorman with United Private Network, who was here last meeting. He hopefully answered our questions for us. I know the first one was Mayor Pro Tem Aldridge's inquiry about requesting a contingency out clause in the contract, and he said that's not possible, as we are investing almost $75,000 to build fiber to the 4 buildings. We must have a 36-month term to recoup our investment. I want to say again that we have a 98% client retention rate. Our customers are pleased with UPN, and I know you all will be too. The other inquiry was about the CJIS, which is the Criminal Justice Information System certification. And he said there's been much discussion within our IT and legal departments about your question of CJIS certification. Here's our response. UPN provides fiber-based services to several cities, school districts, and municipalities across each of its markets. Like most other providers of services like ours, we are not CJIS certified. UPN doesn't provide encrypted services and will not access or store customers' data transmitted over our fiber. UPN will remain diligent and comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and industry standards related to the services UPN provides in order to ensure customer confidentiality and satisfaction. So I did send, because they provided the contract for services as well as some other information in which I sent to our city attorney, and we had a discussion about this. So a couple of things that he wanted to point out. He felt that was an excellent question about the buyout or opt-out, clause, contingency, especially since they're newer to the market area. And so he said he really wanted to see if maybe we go back to them and attempt to negotiate a shorter time period. I know I told him that came up. They may not be willing to do that. However, he brought up another good point that may help with that negotiation. He did some calculations based on what they provided here, and it's more than $50,000 worth of services over the 3-year time period, 36-month term. So we know that the state laws require that we bid out anything that costs more than $50,000. So he said this does need to go through the competitive bidding process unless it's handled through like a buy board type agency, which they don't have something like that for cable and internet services. So we would have to publish it in the paper and allow all the competitors, Spectrum, Grande, all the ones I'm familiar with, to bid on it as well. So he said that could potentially help you in negotiating a shorter term. The other thing he brought up in the contract is that it talks about the indemnification, and we've seen this in other contracts that have been presented to the city before. In this one, it talks about the laws of another state. So there's a statement that we always ask these providers to put into the contract that talks about Texas law and how the cities are indemnified or really held harmless against any of these service providers. So we would recommend adding that language. The CJIS certification is not an issue. I did speak with our IT providers because they have CJIS certified employees and they're the ones who really come on site. The internet service providers are not going to need to get into our systems like that. They're just providing the service, so that's not an issue. But I just wanted to, tonight we won't take any action, of course. We just wanted to get our questions answered, see if you all had any additional questions to take back to them. And if you're interested in moving forward with the potential of this, we would put out bids in January.
well, if we're on once a month with Ron anyway, right?
Yes.
Well, here's the thing, whether it would be this or we may even have a better deal coming. You put something out like this that, and you get the competition going, my goodness, why not? AT&T's the other fiber that's around. Let's see, AT&T. Spectrum is the other that's, so yeah, you might just want it bad enough. I do, I just, I put it out.
And I did have an email from Doug Wolf with Gmail as well, because they're interested in internet services there, because they have the security equipment that runs on there. But when they actually were getting quotes, and Spectrum actually quoted them like $16,000 just to run the line, which was way more than obviously they were willing to pay. So he actually said that if something like this came in, or anything that we decide and it's, beneficial, they would like to be considered, at least to be part of that discussion, just to see too.
Yeah.
And UPN did ask for their contact
Okay,
information,
great.
so they can speak to them about exactly what their needs are.
Perfect. Because that's something that we didn't think about, because all of those groups over there, it may be something.
And I know we've tried before, wanting to get cameras in the park, but the service is so terrible, you can't get
Correct.
Wi-Fi to work properly to do that.
Yeah. So that's
It's all
just
about
another
760
visual.
instead of 1080, and that's pretty grainy. My wife is wrong with it.
But I'm glad that they reached out just in case. Because that may be something too that they can consider when you send this back to them.
Right. So, my recommendation would be that we do go ahead and pursue putting out, the competitive bids first of the year for these services, if that's all okay with you all.
Absolutely.
Yes.
If we end up taking the lowest bidder, what are we gonna get?
Well, you don't have to.
Yeah, you
Remember
do.
that.
You
You
You can
do.
always, you
You
can
do
throw it
have to
out.
take the lowest
But if
bidder.
it's responsive, then we have to take
Take
it.
the lowest responsive bid or reject them all.
That's
But
the
if the
same.
lowest bid does not meet our requirements, we
Right.
don't have to
Right.
take it.
Right,
It's not
if it's
responsive.
responsive, yes.
And see what that does, the cool thing is it puts the other ones on notice, because then they, with the envelope, the secret envelopes will open, so they know what they're looking
But
at.
again, like Monique said, you can just, the other option we have is just to do away with all of them in your bid,
Right, yeah.
so.
We don't have to commit to none of them.
No.
Right.
But, I feel like it's worth a try. We're paying a lot with our current provider and not getting the best services, so it's worth a shot to see what else is out there.
Sure.
All right, is there any further discussion on this one? Me?
No, ma'am.
All right, so we will move to item 9A, requesting announcements. Request by Mayor